Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is a show where we really get into complex topics, find those surprising truths, and, well, some practical insights, too. Today, we're diving into a microscopic world, but one with a absolutely monumental impact, the fungus Fusarium graminearum. This deep dive, like all our deep dives, aims to distill the most important stuff from a whole bunch of sources, just to help you quickly grasp what this agricultural and biosecurity thread is all about. And before we jump in, a huge thank you, seriously, to everyone who's already subscribed to the All Sorts podcast on YouTube, followed us on X, Instagram, Threads, all that good stuff. Your support, it really fuels our quest for knowledge and lets us share these vital insights. And if you're just finding us, well, consider this your official invitation to join our growing community. We are the All Sorts podcast, passionate about bringing you surprising facts and hopefully engaging discussions. Hit subscribe on YouTube.
Yeah, thanks for that. And what's really remarkable here, I think, is how this one single organism connects so many seemingly different areas. You've got agricultural economics, food safety, human health, animal health, and even, international security. It's quite the web.
Wow.
Our sources today, they range from pretty technical scientific papers on things like microbial control right through to news reports on, very recent events. Our mission is to sort of connect those dots for you.
Okay, let's get into it then. Fusarium graminearum. Sounds pretty intense, maybe something out of a movie. But it's very real, isn't it? And actually quite common.
Oh, absolutely. Very real and incredibly common. It's also known by its other name. It's Teleomorph gibberellizae. It's basically a global player found all across the U.S. and pretty much any temperate or semi-tropical region worldwide. And it's mostly known for causing Fusarium head blight, FHB they call it, a really devastating disease.
Devastating for which crop specifically? Where does it usually pop up?
It really goes after the major cereal crops. Think wheat, barley, maize, corn and rice too.
So the big ones. The absolute staples.
Exactly. The backbone of global agriculture, really. These aren't minor crops we're talking about.
Right. So given that scale, that global reach, what does this actually mean for our food supply? And, the economy. It's not just biology, is it?
No, definitely not. The economic impact is, it's staggering. Billions, with a B, billions of dollars in losses worldwide every year.
Billions.
Yeah. Just in the U.S., the estimate is over $1 billion annually, directly from F. graminearum. And that's not just some abstract number. It means real hardship for farmers, higher food prices for all of us, and a huge strain on the whole agricultural system. And it's not just yield loss, though that can be bad enough. It really hammers grain quality, too. You get these shriveled, off-color kernels, basically unusable, unsellable.
Wow. So an entire harvest could be essentially wiped out quality-wise.
It happens. And that just ripples through local economies. It's like the slow, quiet economic erosion, maybe more insidious than a sudden market crash, but just as damaging over time.
Okay, so we have the crop damage, the economic hit. But you mentioned something else earlier, something maybe more hidden, more dangerous.
That's right. This is where it gets, really concerning from a health perspective. The real global significance lies in the potent mycotoxins it produces.
Mycotoxins.
Yeah, and these aren't just easily destroyed, They can survive food processing, so they stick around. The two big ones we need to talk about are deoxynivalenol, DON for short, but most people know it as vomitoxin.
Vomitoxin. Doesn't sound good.
It isn't. And the other one is zearalenone, or ZN. Both are pretty nasty.
Okay, break those down. What does DON, the vomitoxin, actually do? Why is it such a concern in our food?
Well, DON is unfortunately quite common. It contaminates wheat, barley, corn, rice, gets into bread, cereal, pasta, even beer sometimes. When you ingest it, it primarily hits your gut and your immune system.
So stomach issues.
Yeah, acute symptoms like nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, stomach pain, fever, headaches. But it's the chronic stuff, too. It's immunotoxic, meaning it actually suppresses your body's ability to fight off infections. That's a major worry.
And long-term.
It's been linked to growth retardation, especially in kids exposed over time through their diet.
Okay, that's serious. And ZNN, you said that one's different.
Yeah, it's an estrogenic mycotoxin, a phytoestrogen, meaning it comes from plants, but it mimics the hormone estrogen in mammals.
It mimics estrogen. How?
It just has a similar enough chemical structure that the body kind of mistakes it. And if it gets into the food chain, especially for livestock, it can be disastrous. We're talking reproductive problems like abortions in pregnant animals, even feminization of males.
And for humans?
Well, the links are still being studied, but there's concern about increased risk of reproductive issues and potentially certain hormone-sensitive cancers like breast cancer with chronic exposure.
Good grief. So how do these things actually get into our bodies? Is it only through eating?
Eating contaminated food is the main way, yes. Bread, cereal, pasta, beer, like I said, everyday stuff. But farmers and grain handlers, they face risks too. Inhaling dust from contaminated grain during harvest or processing is a big one.
Right, the dust.
Yeah, and even skin contact during handling is a potential route of exposure.
So who's most at risk then? Are some people more vulnerable?
Definitely. Infants and children because of their lower body weight and still developing systems. Also, anyone with a weakened immune system, maybe due to illness or medication. And sadly, people in food insecure regions. Often they have limited food safety checks, less choice, and might end up consuming contaminated grain because there's no alternative. That's a really tough reality.
Now, the conversation around this fungus, Fusarium graminearum, seems to have shifted recently. It's not just agriculture and health anymore, is it? It's popped up as a biosecurity concern, which sounds alarming. Why is a crop fungus suddenly being talked about in terms of national security?
It is alarming, and it's a really significant shift. The U.S. Department of Justice, actually, in scientific literature, classified F. graminearum as a potential agroterrorism weapon.
Agroterrorism.
Exactly. And this theoretical concern became very real, very public, with the arrest of a Chinese researcher, Zunyang Liu, and his girlfriend, Yongqing Zhan, back on June 2nd, 2025. They were charged with illegally smuggling Fusarium graminearum into the U.S. That really set off alarm bells.
Smuggling a fungus. Okay. What are the specific fears there? I mean, how easy is it to actually weaponize a fungus like this? It sounds complex.
It is complex, and the case really brought those fears to the surface. The idea that unauthorized import and research on these kinds of pathogens could be part of a bigger, maybe more subtle threat to U.S. food security and public safety, especially given, the existing geopolitical tensions.
Right.
Now, some experts are a bit skeptical about using it for like a direct, massive, immediate attack. You need very specific conditions, temperature, humidity for a really widespread infection. It's tricky logistically.
So if a big, sudden attack is maybe less likely, what's the surprising element here? What's the real worry about its potential as a weapon?
Yeah, the surprising thing maybe is that its value as an agroterrorism tool might be more about economic warfare, a slow burn, rather than a big explosion.
Economic warfare, how so?
Imagine someone subtly introducing a new strain, maybe one that's more aggressive or resistant to the fungicides we use. It wouldn't cause immediate panic, perhaps, but over time, over years, it could quietly devastate staple crops. No clear villain, no single event to point to.
Just decline.
Exactly. A slow-motion agricultural crisis. Food gets scarcer, prices go up, public trust in the food system erodes. It's debilitating. And even though we've studied F. graminearum here for over a century, the idea of a new, more potent variant being introduced, that's a genuine worry, especially when, as was alleged in that case, researchers don't register sensitive research plans or give false statements. That kind of secrecy just fuels biosecurity concerns,
It absolutely does. Okay, so given how pervasive this is and how dangerous both economically and health-wise, what are we actually doing about it? What are the practical steps?
Well, it's definitely a multi-front battle. Farmers and researchers use a whole toolbox of strategies. Fungicides, for instance. They can reduce the disease maybe by 50 or 60%, which is significant. But timing is everything. You have to apply them at just the right growth stage, early heading for barley, early flowering for wheat. Miss that window, and they're much less effective.
So chemicals help, but they're not a silver bullet. What else? Are there more maybe sustainable approaches?
Oh, definitely. Resistance breeding is a huge focus. It's probably the most evidence-based and cost-effective long-term strategy. Scientists are always working to develop new crop varieties that have natural resistance. It's slow work, though. No completely resistant variety exists just yet.
I'm still working on it.
Still working on it. And even simple things help. Like for corn, growing varieties that have looser husks, that makes it less cozy and humid for the fungus. And then storage. Super important. If you store harvested grain below 15% moisture, it dramatically reduces fusarium growth and toxin production later on.
Okay, that makes sense. What about actual farming practices out in the field?
Crop rotation. That's absolutely key. Don't plant wheat after wheat or wheat after corn. Rotate with something the fungus doesn't like, such as soybeans. That helps break the disease cycle because the fungus often survives on the leftover crop residue, the stubble.
Right, the stuff left behind.
Exactly. So tilling that residue under can also help minimize the fungus overwintering. Using certified, clean seed, maybe treated seed, is also important to prevent seedling blight right at the start. And even managing insect pests, like corn ear borers. The damage they cause creates little entry points for the fungus to get in. It's all connected.
Wow, it sounds like a huge amount of effort just to manage this one fungus using these sort of conventional methods. But you mentioned earlier things like microbial control. Are there newer, maybe more eco-friendly ideas emerging? What's on the horizon?
Yeah, this is where things get really interesting, I think. There's definitely a move towards what you might call microbial revolution in tackling this. These microbial detoxification techniques are getting a lot of attention as alternatives to just physical or chemical methods.
Why the shift?
Well, those older methods often have downsides, right? Nutrient loss in the grain, chemical residues we don't want, high energy use. Biological solutions offer something potentially more sustainable and targeted.
Okay, intriguing. So what kind of microbes are we talking about, and how do they actually, work?
We can kind of group them by how they work. First up, you've got adsorption and binding.
Absorption.
Yeah.
Like a sponge.
Pretty much, yeah. Think about the cell walls of certain microbes, like common baker's yeast, Saccharomyces cerevisiae, or lactic acid bacteria, the kind you find in probiotics. Their cell walls have complex structures, things like glucomannan in yeast or peptidoglycans in bacteria. These structures act like tiny, intricate sponges with specific sites that physically grab onto mycotoxin molecules.
Oh, we trap them.
They trap them, bind them, essentially pulling them out of the food or feed and stopping them from being absorbed by the body. Pretty clever.
Okay, so that's dealing with toxins already there. What about stopping the fungus from making them in the first place?
Right, that's the next strategy. Biocompetitive inhibition. This involves introducing beneficial, non-toxic microbes into the environment, often strains from the same species as the bad guys. They basically just outcompete the toxic molds. They fight for the same food, the same space.
A turf war.
Exactly, a microscopic turf war. By dominating the resources, they limit the growth of the toxin-producing Fusarium and therefore limit toxin production. There's a good example using non-toxic strains of Aspergillus flavus to reduce aflatoxin in peanuts and corn. Same principle.
Okay, so blocking the toxins, out competing the fungus. Can these microbes actually destroy the toxins themselves?
Yes, and that's perhaps the most exciting area. Microbial active substances. Certain microbes produce compounds that either stop the Fusarium from growing, acting like natural fungicides, or, even cooler, they produce enzymes that directly break down the mycotoxin molecules.
They break them down?
Yeah, they detoxify them. Enzymes, like lactone hydrolase, for example, can chemically change the structure of zearalenone, making it less toxic or totally non-toxic. It's like biological decontamination.
That's incredible. Is there anything specific like that for Fusarium graminearum?
There is a bacterial strain called Bacillus siamensis GLZO2. It was actually isolated from the soil right around maize roots, the rhizosphere. Lab studies show it's remarkably good at inhibiting F. graminearum. We're talking inhibition rates up to like 77%.
Wow.
It seems to secrete these antifungal compounds that mess with the fungus's cell walls, effectively neutralizing it.
That's amazing potential. And it sounds like the plants themselves might be playing a role here, too.
Yeah.
You mentioned the rhizosphere.
They absolutely are, in this really fascinating way. When a plant is under attack by something like Fusarium, it doesn't just sit there. It can send out chemical signals, like a cry for help, into the soil around its roots.
Seriously. A cry for help.
Metaphorically, yeah.
Mm.
These signals, these exudates, they can selectively attract beneficial microbes like that bacillus to come to its defense. It's a natural defense mechanism. So these biological controls, in a way, are just amplifying what the plant is already trying to do, call in microbial allies.
That changes how you think about plants, doesn't it? Okay, so this whole deep dive, it's shown the huge challenges, economic, health, even security from Fusarium graminearum, but also some really incredible ingenuity in fighting back. Looking forward, what does the future look like for controlling this? Where are we heading?
Well, connecting it all, molecular biotechnology is really pushing the boundaries. Scientists are mapping the entire genomes of these fungi to pinpoint the exact genes responsible for making the toxins.
So you find the toxin factory gene.
Pretty much. And once you find it, you can use techniques like gene knockout, basically switching off that specific gene so the fungus physically can't produce the toxin anymore.
Wow. Silencing the threat.
Or you can go the other way. Genetically modify the crops themselves to boost their natural resistance, make the plants tougher defenders. And we can even clone those detoxification genes, the ones that make the toxin-busting enzymes, and put them into engineered microbes. Imagine producing those enzymes on a large scale to treat contaminated grain.
That sounds like science fiction almost. How does this apply globally, though? Different places have different problems, right?
That's a really important point. You have to tailor the approach. Look at China, for example. Big country, diverse climates, persistent mycotoxin issues in the hot, humid south. Maybe you focus on microbes that produce those inhibitory substances because they'll thrive there, up in the drier, colder north. Maybe things like spirulina or Bacillus pumilus would be more effective, things that handle those conditions better.
Tailoring the microbes to the climate.
Exactly. And in regions like the Qinling-Huai line, a big agricultural belt, where wheat and corn get hit hard by specific toxins like DON, maybe spraying those active microbial substances directly could be really effective. And down south again, where you might get multiple toxins at once. Maybe you need a cocktail approach, a multi-probiotic mix, using different yeasts and bacteria that use biocompetition and adsorption.
So it's complex, the challenges are huge, but the future sounds hopeful. Lots of innovation happening.
Definitely hopeful. More targeted, safer, and more sustainable solutions are really on the horizon.
Well, today we've gone from huge fields of grain right down to the microscopic level, exploring the battles for food security, all centered on this one fungus, Fusarium graminearum. We've seen the billions in losses, the hidden dangers of toxins in our food, even how it touches on national security. But we've also seen the incredible science fighting back resistant plants, beneficial microbes, harnessing nature itself.
Yeah, and it really underscores how complex problems often need these layered, innovative solutions. So maybe a question for you, the listener. What part of this stood out to you the most? Was it the scale of the economic impact, the way those mycotoxins work, or perhaps the potential of using bacteria like Bacillus siamensis as tiny bodyguards for our crops?
Whatever it was, whatever resonated, remember this deep dive is just, well, one thread in the huge tapestry we explore here on the All Sorts podcast. If you enjoyed digging into this with us, let that curiosity guide you. Please join our community of curious minds. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Seriously, it helps us a lot. You'll find tons of other fascinating episodes there. Share this one with a friend who loves to learn. And connect with us on X, Instagram, and Threads for more surprising facts and ongoing discussions. Your support truly fuels this whole project. It helps us keep making these deep dives, helping us all become, hopefully, a little more well-informed and inspired. Until next time, keep digging deeper.